full single-family design board meeting for June 5th, 2023. If we could have a roll call, please.
Thank you. Chair Kalas,
Here.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Here.
Board Member Graffitti,
Here.
Board Member Sherry.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay, great. So we will go on to general business, item A. Our first item of business is public comment for anybody who would like to speak to an item that is under the purview of this board but is not calendared on today's agenda. If there is anybody in the audience or online that would like to speak, we will have staff facilitate that.
All right. Thank you, Chair Kalas. I'll go ahead and start with in-person public comment. At this time, I haven't received any speaker slips, but if you do wish to speak, you can fill out a speaker slip by the back door. And seeing no one move to speak in person, I'll go ahead and move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom, you can go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you. At this time, I don't see any hands raised on Zoom, and we did not receive any general written correspondence. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Kalas.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item B, which is approval of past meeting minutes. And we'll go ahead and we'll start with the full board meeting from 2 weeks ago, which is May 22nd. Was there any comments from the board? I've got a couple. Wondering if anybody else has any comments. Okay. So on item, it's page 3 of 6 of the draft minutes, under the motion, item 8, the board requests a section drawing cut through the retaining walls. I'm wondering if anybody from the board recalls which direction we were asking. This is the item that was up on West Mitchell-Terena Street. And we were asking for a cut through the retaining walls, and I don't recall if that was a lateral or a longitudinal sectional drawing. Does anybody recall?
I think it was a lateral section cut, because it would be through the hill.
Yep, okay. So generally speaking, it would be in a north-south direction, I think. It's from the street, perpendicular from the street up.
Yeah, just say that.
Okay. So, yeah, so if we can just clarify that it's a section drawing cut through the retaining walls perpendicular to the street. And to clarify intent on item 9, we were asking the applicant to consider a different type of guardrail at the roof deck level in an effort to reduce the apparent mass from street level. And similarly, on item 10, we were asking the applicant to consider ways to address soil retention and reduce the height of the wall around the stairwell. The only other item that I had a comment on was item 1, page 4 of 6. This is under item 2, motion, comment 1. If we could strike the word huge and replace it with the word significant. It's on the second line of that motion.
Thanks, Chair Kalas. We received the edits and they've been made.
Okay, so would anybody like to make a motion? Or I'm happy to make a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
All
Can we
right.
have a roll call, please?
Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti,
Yes.
Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. So we'll move on to approval of the draft minutes for consent calendar from May 30th. We do not have any from June 5th because today's consent calendar was canceled. Ms. Anderson, I think you were present for this item. If you've reviewed these, would you like to make a motion?
I have one comment on page 4, just so that it reads a little easier. So it would be item 1A. There are new windows and doors of quality material with a neutral palette to blend into the hillside. Something to that effect, I think, would replace some of the kind of awkwardness of that sentence. But otherwise, I've reviewed the rest of the comments, and they are all good.
Okay.
So, can I
Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah.
You can, yes.
I can make a motion to approve these consent minutes from May 30th.
Okay, I will second. If we could take a roll call, please.
Right. Chair Kalas,
Yes?
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti,
Yes.
Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so we will move on to the last item under general business, which is item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Do we have any announcements from the board?
Yes, so thank you, Ellen Kirkinda, Design Review Supervisor. I just want to ask the SFDB that I want to put together an SFDB subcommittee with members of the AIA Advocacy Group, and this is to discuss some potential amendments to our code and Title 2269, which goes over the design review trigger. So this is something that, again, has been part of our process improvements. And before we take anything more formal to the Land Development Team Oversight Subcommittee, which is the City Council Subcommittee, I'd really like kind of thinking from this board and, again, our collaborators with AIA. And a subcommittee is kind of an informal way to do that. It could just be creating a time that works. And so I'm looking for 2 volunteers. I know that Board Member Lewis isn't here today, but I just want to put that out there. We don't have to make a decision, but I'm looking to kind of get something, that we can get something together sooner rather than later, again, just to vet some ideas and maybe present something for the full board to discuss as well. So just have that in the back of your mind. I'll be reaching out about that.
Do we have a sense of what the commitment would be?
I think, I'm assuming it's going to take maybe a handful of meetings, 3 to 5 meetings, just to kind of, like, what staff will do is that we'll bring something for the group to react to and then kind of get feedback from that. We have already done a lot of input with the AIA Advocacy Group, as well as individual past and present board members. So we did get information of kind of where we think that directionally where we might go, but I think it'll be helpful to kind of think about certain things together. And it's not just to reduce the number of design review triggers, but also talk a little bit about maybe acceptable materials and things that we can expand administrative or staff approvals. So just kind of having that I'd like to have more information, kind of things vetted prior to moving forward within that conversation until, again, we kind of have a little bit more conversation around it.
Okay. Is there a date by which you need a commitment from members of our board?
Let me map out what the expectation is and kind of the calendar and what kind of a ballpark game plan would be. And that way it might be helpful to know what kind of volunteers we might be able to get from this board.
Great, okay, thank you, Ellen. Are there any other announcements from staff or the board?
Yes, Chair Kalas, board members, just quick reminders. At our next full board hearing, we'll have our general training session. That'll be about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then at the meeting after that, the full board hearing, we'll have another training for about an hour on FAR and architectural style. And then we have a project going to City Council tomorrow for an appeal of a project design approval. It's 3208 Laurel Canyon Road. And I understand Chair Kalas has graciously volunteered to attend, granted the timing of the hearing. Thank you.
Oh, and one last thing, we also have next week, at next week's council on the 13th, will be the conversation about the idea to move SFDB appeals from city council as the review authority to the planning commission. So that will be introduced at council next week. So we'll keep updating you.
Try to attend that also. Okay. That's the 13th.
The 13th.
Yeah. Okay, great. Anything else? Okay. So with that, we'll close the general business portion of the agenda, and we will move on to item 1, which is 1932 Cleveland Avenue. This is a new project that is here for a concept review. This is a proposal to construct a 443 square foot addition and a new 327 square foot basement to an existing 890 square foot single unit residence located in the Hillside Design District, as well as the Mission Area Design District. Project includes a new 260 square foot deck, a new concrete walkway at the entry, a new front porch railing, new landscaping, and new trash enclosure on top of the existing garage. The as-built guardrail on the garage is proposed for removal. The 572 square foot existing detached garage will remain and is not a part of this board's review. The proposed total of 2,132 square feet of development on a 5,520 square foot lot is 83% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio, or the project requests a fence hedge height, and open yard zoning modification from the staff hearing officer. So no final appealable decision will take place at this hearing. Neighborhood preservation findings in Hillside Design District and slope lot findings will be required when the time comes for PDA. I suspect that we are here to give comments related to your forthcoming SHO hearing.
That's correct.
Okay, great. So if you can just introduce yourselves and your project, that'd be great.
Chair Leslie and everybody, good to see you all again. My name is Mark Winke. I'm stepping in for Ken Dixon, and this is Kyle Dixon.
Yep, Kyle Dixon, Windward Design.
Windward Design. Okay, so does everybody know where this is from the picture on the left? It's one of the sites on a
Sorry
really
to
hard...
interrupt, but just to the applicant, can you scooch closer to the mic? Yeah, thank you.
It's one of those sites that's on the hillside on Cleveland, and so they call it an uphill hillside site, which means the house is placed up higher up the hill. The garage is buried into the hill right at the property line, and so they want to add an addition to the right-hand side of the addition as you look up from it, and that's what it's going to look like at the top. So it's buried also in the hillside now, so they're going to try to utilize some of the foundation work to have a little room at the bottom, which becomes like a bedroom. So that's why it looks like that. And then between the old house on the left and the new addition on the right, there is a deck with a trellis area, and that's what's in the center of the section there. Should I zoom in at all to the site? No? Okay. All right, next one. All righty. So, we're going to have to zoom into these, aren't we?
You can use to the right of the hand there up at the top. Yeah, that may be helpful.
Probably, if I can get them like this. Can we see those yet? Closer?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay. The house on the, number one is the house on the left. It has I don't know what it has there. I think it's just a room in the left, and then there's a little parking space, and then there are walkways. Can't get rid of that thingy. Can you?
I think
Get rid
if you
of that thing.
select the hand, Mr. Wenke, that it'll allow you to move the paper. I think. Does that work for you? Staff can probably provide you better direction than I.
Oh, there. No?
It's got to be enabled.
Yeah. That's odd. Now you should be able to.
Oh, cool, okay, maybe I'll use the mouse then. So then the house, the garage is there, the house, the area that's between the two, or I'm wiggling my hand there, that area has been cut down so that it accommodates the 10-foot splays of visibility. It's already been cut down, because they've noticed that also, and renovated, so that part's gone. The existing garage is there on the left, and it has had, when they bought it, it's had it for years, this deck, or this railing up at the top so that people don't fall off the roof. In the very back of the garage, it's flush with the grade, so you can actually walk out there. To the right, there's parking here in front, and then there's parking spaces here along the street. That is not their property, that is already the part of the city easement and area. This is the hedge and stone wall that's existing, and so there's a fence behind that wall, and hedge is growing over it and vines are growing over it. That's the explanation of the wall on top of the stone wall. And as you can kind of see, it continues across to the neighbor on the right, and the stone wall varies from anywhere from 4 feet to 2 feet with the hedge. Their hedge is clipped, as you can see, and then this is a vine. To get up to the house, there's a stairway right here between the two. And you can see more pictures. It actually is pretty cool that you can actually get a lot of parking on the street if you're going to visit the people, the neighbors. Across the street, garages and whatnot. And that kind of tells you what's happening from above. So there's houses above. They're way ahead, way higher than this particular property, so there's no view restrictions or anything. The house to the right is off to the side here. Then they'd have their outdoor area here. This house has an existing little area here on the side, and then a lot of area in the front. There's the garage I was speaking of that's basically flush with that. The tree is here in the between the house, the entryway, and the back of the garage. Here's the front property line. And one of the things that we are going for staff hearing officer modification is they have a lot of land here in front with the addition, a lot of area here in front, but it's all in the front yard, and as we know, the 1250 open space can't all be in the front yard per zoning. So even though there's going to be like 1,300 plus 1,700 plus area, it is not enough, so we need to go for that. Let's see, go back to this. Okay. Then, more of the same of that just explained. I'm now gonna, mine has an escape key. Let's see if this will work. Did I draw a blue box over everything? I'm not sure what I did. Okay, so these gray areas are the 1250 outdoor space. There's the deck in the middle. The pink area is the house addition and some of the renovation or area that's being demolished. Am I doing that?
Mark, can you hold on just a second? Yeah.
Okay, no problem. So there's the 1250 outdoor space, and they're going to renovate all that as part of a new revised landscape, which we'll see the preliminary plan in a second. The stairs stay here. The existing fence then turns, there's already an existing gate at the top of the stairs. We're then going to continue the fence into an enclosed trash area, which is at this point behind the setback lines, within the setback lines, however you want to put it, and behind fences. At the top here, there's a little outdoor space here that's already existing under the tree. It's really nice. And then over this area here is going to all be renovated into another nice outdoor area for them and their family, growing family. At that point, you come up the stairs that are existing, go into the house. And the pink area is the addition. There's going to be a kind of a hallway. We'll see in the next drawing, I think. Hallway that takes you in front of the kitchen area, creating an indoor-outdoor area between the kitchen, which gets renovated, and the outdoor deck, and a stairway that takes you down to the below, and/or the master suite just beyond the stairs. And that's that. This is the area that is on the right-hand side in the back of the property. The lower level is all dug into the hill, but does have enough daylight through construction to have a window here for a guest room, a bathroom in the back, another kind of vestibule space as you come in from here, and stairways up to above. That's the roof plan. This is the existing elevations. The bottom right is really the one you can see from the front, as you can see the existing shape of it. Maybe I should go a little smaller. Is that too small? Okay, so the front contiguous. The kitchen area now existing is about a foot or foot 2 inches, 14 inches above the living area. So as you come up the stairs here, you have to already come up. So we're going to match the height of the kitchen area with this room, which is the master suite. And then that area has a little bit higher roof form, as you can see from here, and nestles into the other roof, which is a little shallower roof form. The deck is here, the railing comes across, leaving enough room to have a few windows into that vestibule and bedroom below. All the material existing is clear redwood siding that's been sandblasted, so it's really kind of amazingly still intact and pretty. So I'm going to continue that with the new addition, so it has this really warm, beautiful feeling. And at this point, the foundation is just like board form concrete, simple, sort of natural feeling underneath it. This is an elevation that was requested by staff to show you what it looks like from the street. And that area that's in red, I think it just says fence for the trash cans. That's about 20 feet back from the front. Sections. Does anybody need to study this closer? Let me know. That's the look of the 3D. This does not reflect what they're doing with the landscaping, but it's trying to represent that it's stepping down the hill there. And again, there's a fence, but there's actually a wall here and the hedge that's going to block most of this from this viewpoint. And the landscaping, it's basically taking at the top of the stairs, creating a little bit of area, this zone, and then kind of tiered dry stack walls. They're basically already doing that with the house landscaping now, but during construction, it's all going to get ruined anyway, so they're going to reconstitute it as this kind of upper area, play area, a couple of steps down, and then have the tiered, at the very bottom of the area, have the tier retention area for the water retention. I think that's it. And a couple more renderings. The concrete block right now is sort of lightly colored. This is representing the possibility that maybe it goes a little bit darker, chocolatey, and and then this area is already existing stone. That's about it. Did I miss anything? Forget anything?
Okay, great. You have about 4 minutes left, just as a matter of information. So we will go ahead and have staff open public comment at this time to anybody here or online.
All right, thank you, Chair Kalas. I'll go ahead and start with in-person public comment. So I haven't received any speaker slips at this time, but just as a reminder, if anyone wishes to speak in person, you can fill out a speaker slip by the back door. And seeing no one move to speak in person, I'll go ahead and move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. At this time, I don't see any hands raised on Zoom, and we also did not receive any written correspondence for this item. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Chair Kalas.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to open up the item to questions from the board, and I'm going to start with Ms. Graffitti.
Okay, great. Can you just cover for me quickly for the fence hedge height modification? You'd mentioned some of the vegetation on the border of the property had been removed, but can you clarify where, is that the front stone wall and vine?
Right, all of that's already existing, so they want to keep it. It provides them some sense of privacy from the street, and cars park here. That's the fence line there. So see here, it's like 4 feet at the corner, and then it becomes 2 feet and continues along. Then the fence is behind that, and then the hedge is growing on the fence, and then that fence line goes back and attaches to that fence there. They're not changing it. They don't want to change any of that. But because it's already 5 or 6 feet, 6 feet high on top of that, it needs to have a modification.
Okay, so I guess my question, maybe it would be to staff to understand what the modification rule is and what's being proposed to keep.
I can pull up the ordinance real quick to get the exact figure, but I want to say it's 3.5 feet is allowable at the front lot line. And so anything above that would need either a minor zoning exception or a modification. And it was at such a height that a minor zoning exception didn't apply, and it had to be a modification through the staff hearing officer.
Okay, thank you.
From the board's standpoint, comments would be something like, we think that it really adds to the neighborhood that this stays the way it is, and the fence is fine at 6 feet, stuff like that.
Yes, that's helpful. And I think I understand definitely what would be driving to keep it. I'm just trying to get clarity on what is the proposed exception. And
Exactly.
and then my other question is, just quickly, the second story element on the right side, I noticed that it's kind of hanging over the first story element a little. Could you speak to if there were any decisions and like the layout driving that?
It's actually stacked here. And then it's got this is in front of that area. And then it goes to the right-hand side, to the, over here. That cantilever's out a tad.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Sherry, do you have any questions?
Just for staff to clarify one more time why this overheight fence and hedge does not qualify for an MZE?
It's too tall. So there are 3 levels. So there's allowed by right, which we just looked up is 4 feet. And then with a minor zoning exception, it can go up to 7.5, and that includes the wall and the hedge.
So you're over 7.5.
Over 7.5.
I just remember the applicant saying it was 5 or 6 feet, so that's why I didn't understand.
On top of the wall. So
Oh,
you
on
have to
top of
include the
wall.
height of all of
So it's
it.
everything, okay. That's a shame.
And so staff is supportive of the 2 modifications in conjunction, because the open yard would be proposed in the front yard of the house, and then the hedge and fence would be providing the privacy for that open space. But it is up to the board about whether the aesthetics of it make sense.
No more questions?
Okay. Ms. Anderson, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a few questions always. So there's the comment about the guardrail and the as-built. What is that?
The guardrail is existingly on the garage. And that's just to keep people from falling off. Or it has been for the last 40
You're
years.
speaking to the existing fence or the guardrail on the stair?
Guardrail right there on top of the, I'm not gonna try to move the hand again. But, you see it on the right there? There's this redwood fence on top of the top of the garage. Because the garage is a flat roof.
Understood, yeah.
Yeah.
Lived in one of those
Yeah.
up
so
Pedregosa.
They'd like to keep it because it's been there, and maybe even make it nicer, but it becomes one of those staff hearing officer problems where you have to try to get it approved, and it's not always that approvable because a lot of places around town, they don't have this. Some places have them really nicely, but it adds usable area that might be too close to the street.
So what are you proposing, though? Your renderings
Removing
don't
it.
show that. Oh, you're proposing moving it back?
Removing
Okay.
it, yeah.
All right. And then it's not going to be an observation deck, which most people use in that neighborhood who have the similar conditions. It's becoming a trash enclosure area.
Yeah, at the top of the stairs here, is that the next plan? Yeah, maybe the next plan. No. Yeah, at the top of the stairs, there's continuous stairs, a couple more stairs and then come up. There's trash cans on top of the roof, and they're going to enclose them so that people can't see them.
Okay, and you're proposing to build a fence around that, but not change the existing entry gate and fence around that, but it's going to
Correct. That's it.
match that?
Yeah, it's a 6-foot redwood fence here, and the existing one is. And so we're just going to keep that. And this is within the setback area, so there's really nothing, we're within code to have a trash enclosure there. We're not pushing it off into the setback areas. I think this rendering, that doesn't really, it kind of shows it, but doesn't really show it.
Kind of shows it, yeah.
That one there kind
So
of shows it.
I'm trying to understand too, is that stair wall existing at that elevation? Yeah, right there where you're, and I'm just wondering why that wouldn't, or if you didn't consider continuing that around the front at least. And then I question your stone wall there on the property line and want to understand how that plays into.
That's my fault. That's not really a stone wall.
Okay.
That's fence line. That's redwood fence still.
Okay,
I don't know how that got turned into that, but this came off because that would be requesting a staff hearing officer approval for something that they said that they probably wouldn't approve. This is trying to keep it a new extension so that when you're walking up the stairs, you don't see and/or able to climb onto the roof of the, right? So it's just kind of coming up at that angle, which is basically 10 inches to there. And that was going to be an extension of the wall.
okay,
that
so
make
it
sense?
slopes up, but then it doesn't come across at that 10 inches across the front of the garage.
Correct. Could, but
Okay,
because that wouldn't be a railing, so I think we could do that.
yeah,
We had to.
just trying to understand and seeing a lot of different garages set in the hillside like that.
Personally, if you guys think it's not safe, we would be fine with that. We would probably build a little wall there because they have little kids and they don't think it's safe either, just to enclose it and probably make it look nice. But you can say that to your comments.
Yes. Did you talk to the neighbors on the east side? Since their backyard is facing where you're adding on, I'm assuming that was the open yard area that you're filling in now with the addition.
Oh, shoot. Don't do that.
It's that plus up at the top again, Mr. Weinke. Yeah, there you are. I know, we all want to just use a wand and yeah.
Can you use the magnifying glass? The magnifying
Yeah,
glass,
to the left
three
of the,
dots to the left of the hand. Go under item 1.
left,
there.
left, 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 left. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. There you go.
Find what?
Oh, I think it's actually to the left of the, I think it's to the left of the arrow or the cursor up top.
Okay.
That works.
Okay.
Okay. The question was that we talked to the neighbor about adding on to this section. This section is within their setbacks. That's why we designed it, so it doesn't go over the setback lines. And their property is way to the side of that. As you can see here, there's a lot of room here, and their backyard is in this section and this section here, I guess, side yard plate here. This is a shed. I don't know what's in this area. It's hard to tell there's so many bushes in here. So no, we didn't think that building an addition here was going to loom or look into their private area.
Are there windows on that elevation on the second floor and for the master?
There are some on the corner. Can I go backwards? No, darn it. There's one there in the corner. There's one back here. I think that's a bathroom or something. But like I said, there's a lot of bushes between the two properties.
Okay, thank you. And there's not a lot of excavation that you're doing for that basement, was already existing
Correct.
condition, gotcha, okay. Are you planning on replacing all the roofing and the siding?
We're hoping not to touch the siding because it's really pretty, and because it's redwood, it's lasted pretty well. And when the previous owners cleaned it off, it's probably sandblasted it. It's really nice condition. The roofing looks pretty good, so I don't think they're planning on replacing it. It's just a comp roof right now. They're gonna do their new roofing to match it.
Okay, and then you would add the new cedar or redwood. And then this is further beyond concept, but just trying to understand how you're gonna finish it all out.
Their hopes are that it can be stayed natural, so in the very beginning, the cedar or redwood will be probably lighter than the color. It's not gray now, it's kind of a coppery color, kind of like this.
It's warmer.
Yeah, it's warm, so. They'll have to clear coat it, as we know, but someday when it matches.
And I know, I think you're like 22 feet height overall, but what's your plate height on that second floor of the new addition?
It's 8 feet in the back. I believe it was 9 feet.
It's the same.
Yeah, it's 8 feet.
Okay, with that same 4 and 12 pitch, great. Okay, and then back on that front fence, sorry, just to finalize everybody's questions. We got the 4 to 2 foot existing stone wall in the front, and I think you're proposing another 6 foot fence that's existing on whatever grade that is beyond that 2 and 4 foot. So you're actually
We're not pro-
overall height at the property line.
Yeah. We're not
Is-
The one
proposing.
being retained, that's the one that's being kept.
Yeah. It's, the one that's being kept is this whole section here that's enclosed by hedge. The existing fences inside there.
Right, but that is 6 foot on 2 feet of grade. What is it?
Right. 6 feet.
Yeah,
So it's 6 feet from the driveway grade to the top of the hedge is what you're proposing?
From the driveway grade down here, this is probably almost 4 feet, or that's 4 feet. This is probably less than 4 feet, and then it steps back a foot or two, and then it goes up. I think it's 5 or 6 foot high fence. It's hard to actually get in there and measure
Can we
it, but
take a look at the front
see.
elevation? I think that might inform heights if we make an assumption about the garage.
elevation or the actual
Or
pictures?
photos would
Yeah.
probably be best.
Closer. Yeah, so this is the stairway up between the two, and there's the hedge of the vines over the fence and the stone wall.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so it looks like it's somewhere in the neighborhood of, it's, well, from grade, you've got, let's say, an 8-foot garage, and then you've got a guardrail there, right? So you're somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 feet, maybe, 12 feet, something like that? Doing some quick math?
It's at least 10 feet, I'd say, to there.
Okay. Okay.
This-
Okay, so the tree that is to the north of the garage is to remain, is that correct?
Yes, there's a jacaranda in the back and another tree The jacaranda is really gorgeous. The other tree is sort of right in front of it. I'm not sure the name of it. We could look on the plan probably, but at this point, we want to keep them both.
Okay, so you're not removing either?
No.
Okay.
It's nice, they're both nice trees.
Okay. The slope of the roof on the proposed addition, does that match the slope of the roof on the existing residence? Because from the front of the residence, it looks like it has a relatively shallow pitch,
I think it's,
and the addition looks taller, looks like a higher pitch.
this area is, I'm sorry, this area is 4 and 12, this area is 4 and 12. So the new matches that. I wonder if,
Maybe we could look at the front elevation.
maybe I think this front area is less. That does look less, doesn't it?
It is because it doesn't meet a 45-degree angle. on the
Yeah.
plan. But
The existing part was back here. You see my little guy moving? That's 4 and 12. So that's why we cut that to create this roof. And then this
Right.
part in front.
Right, so from the east to the west side, it makes sense for that roof
Right.
pitch to match. Okay. So this is kind of a conceptual question. Is there a reason that you elected to separate the two decks rather than to try to find a way to, and I understand there's a grade difference there, you explained that in terms of the house itself, but I'm just wondering, there's a lot of sort of detailing and expense going on to introduce this new staircase, and is there a way to take advantage of the existing staircase and connect those, or was there an intentional reason that's occurring? I'm just wondering if that's an opportunity to create some more light into that window downstairs for that bedroom?
I
or-
struggled with that too. That's a good question because we wanted, this is existing and it's really not even a deck per se. I mean, they could probably keep their shoes there. So the stairs come up and you walk in. Then the question was at the top of the stairs as a procession for the public to visit, right? You don't want to confuse them with where the front door is. So we want to emphasize this being that method. And we want to actually de-emphasize them even walking over here until they have been asked to by the owners. This then was added on because here's the kitchen deck. They might want to come down here and play without having to go all the way through the house to the front door again. So this was added on to accommodate that, and we pushed it over to this side for that reason and made it as open as possible for that very reason, which is to try to get
To get the light
the
downstairs?
light into that one section.
Okay.
I don't know what happened there.
Okay.
That's a PDF. That's not me. That's a PDF problem.
It's just, yeah, it takes a while for these things to
Yeah.
load sometimes. Okay.
So I did try to move the stair further this way, right? And so that it would actually end here and not there, which we still could do. And it may be a good reason, good thing to look for because I think we have enough landscaping and processional forming things like walkways and plants to keep you from coming up here accidentally to go to the front door, which is not there.
Right, gotcha, okay. Could we take a quick look at the landscape plan again?
Is that at the end, right? Should I zoom in? If I zoom in, can you see it? Or
You
you
know
want-
what, actually, the aerial view is going to be more informative for what I'm looking for.
Okay.
If you can go back to whatever satellite or aerial photo you have. Okay. I'm just taking a look at the vegetation on that east property line. Okay, those are my only questions for the applicant. I have a question for staff. So Can you riddle me this? Why is it that we are discouraging the use of the space over the garage? Or why would it be that the staff hearing officer would not be supportive of that?
So I can't know what the staff hearing officer would approve or deny. But in general, staff is never supportive of roof decks that are right on a property line for neighbor concerns. And if we do something like what was being discussed earlier about putting up a guardrail there, that makes it a roof deck. And then this project would need a front setback modification and an interior setback modification.
Right, I
But-
understand the implications. I'm just wondering when you think of how these properties developed over time on the Riviera, it's it's like historically, traditionally, that's what everybody used those for. It was like a Miradora. It was like where you stand and you look over town. And so it's interesting to me that that the staff hearing officer would not be supporting that use because it is a historical, traditional use of those spaces.
So again, just to clarify, it would be staff that's not supportive of it, not necessarily the staff hearing officer. They can apply for any kind of modification they want, even if staff is not supportive of it. Just last week, the staff hearing officer approved a project that staff was recommending denial for. So it can happen. But this particular project hasn't been noticed for those two modifications. So it would have to come back here and it would have to be deemed incomplete if they wanted to go that route. If they were concerned about safety, which I completely understand, I have 2 kids, they could look at things like a fence at the back of that garage to limit access to it, because you're out of the setbacks at that point, and interior setbacks allow for a greater height once you're, I believe it's 20 feet back from the property line, which this would be. So there are ways
That's
to.
effectively what they're doing right now with the trash
Right.
enclosure, right?
So I'm saying that line could continue all the way to the edge of the property, which it looks like it is, but technically, if you put a guardrail up there, it makes it a roof deck, and then it triggers 2 more setback modifications.
Okay. Sort of answered the question. Thank you. Okay, those were my only questions. Does anybody have any comments? Does anybody want to jump in with comments? Whoever wants to jump in first.
I'll go. I think it's a really nice project, and my comments are that I don't know if you need the dark new large wall on the left-hand side of the railing, and I don't have a section through that stairwell, like looking to the left, but I was just thinking that you guys were just talking about it, that fence around the trash enclosure would probably, depending on where it hits as you come up, be enough of a deterrent. I just think that from the street, the natural materials of the stone are kind of nice, and it would be, if you could eliminate that higher wall farther back as you get higher on the stairs, then if that material on the side of the garage were more like a creeping fig that was more softened, it would be a more traditional way of dealing with that particular element. And if you kept it trimmed, you could still install a railing there. It's that wall, that view right there, not that one. The one where the handrail is that wall. It's just, especially when it comes up higher than the fascia, because the fascia wraps around and the railing is on it, it looks a little odd to me.
You're seeing the edge of the end of the wall.
Yeah, and it just, it looks like it could, there might be a better treatment for that side of the railing, is my point. And it could be more of a landscaped wall, because it is a concrete block wall, I think. So regarding the railing at the front of the kitchen, you probably had a good reason for not making it more of a visible railing that gave you more of a view toward your really private front yard. But that treatment of having a low wall that's, within 8 inches of the 42-inch high, minimum railing height, seems like it's enclosing the railing. I mean, maybe that's what you wanted, and I don't care one way or the other, but if I had that private of a yard, I would want to be able to look out when I'm sitting in a chair out there. So, I don't have an issue with either of the proposed modifications for either the front yard or the overheight hedge and wall height. And the proposal, I think, is very appropriate, also considering the fact that you can't even see any of the house from the street. So those are my comments.
Okay. Anybody else?
Sure, I'm adding in. Agree with Dawn on that, on the wall, and you didn't really bring up the black, or the chocolate, but I mean, that's further down the road in regards to colors. So just, yeah, agree with what Dawn said on the guardrails. I'm struggling with the open yard because it's there for a reason, light and air, and I know we all work pulling out our hair daily to meet all the guides and the regs, and they're there for a reason. So I'm just adding that in. I'm struggling with the open yard exception. Also, as well, the hedge and the fence in the front. I realize that this is your backyard, really, right? But it's also front yard, and I would prefer to have, rather than a wall, the property stepping back with smaller walls and hedges rather than a 10-foot high wall at the property line. So that's probably more of an issue for me. But I tend to kind of go over the top and then I soften up. I realize that the house is set up higher, so I'm trying to get used to, and looking at the top of the garage is probably 8 foot, and you need that privacy, and that's your backyard. So I'm just commenting with my struggles on that, allowing that exception. Otherwise, yeah, I'm accepting of the project.
You have any comments, Ms. Graffitti?
Yeah, overall, I think it's a great project and improvement. I agree with Board Member Sherry's comments around the wall with the railing and considerations for the railing on the main house as well. But overall, I'm in support of both modifications. I'd be in support of. I like the sandstone rock wall with the vine. Drove the neighborhood, and there's lots of different situations like that, and it seemed to be pretty common. So yeah, I don't have any issue with that. I understand the design restrictions of the house and everything, and why you're requesting that. So yeah, that's all my comments.
I generally agree with everybody. I'm going to say what I think, which is like, God, I'd actually like to see the front wall of the garage heightened to almost match the height of the hedges and have that be your guardrail. Like, to me, that is just what happens on the Riviera, and why would we want to deny somebody the use of that space as part of outdoor living space? I know that's not the project that's in front of us, but I guess I will say that I would support that if that were something that came back at us. I would be happy to provide positive comments in that regard for the staff hearing officer. I do agree that in terms of what's in front of us, that the idea of treating both the front and the return wall of the garage with some sort of landscape element rather than just painting it out dark would be more desirable. I like the idea of a creeping fig. I think that's, it's always kind of how do you manage that from a maintenance standpoint, but maybe there's a way to do that with some sort of standoff. I can definitely support maintaining the existing hedge height and at the front property line and wall. And So in terms of the square footage that we do have and our comments that we would be making for the open yard space, I'm not seeing how much open yard space you're actually obtaining here. Like, when you're calculating that, I mean, it says you've got 260 square feet of deck, and I know that's probably too high to include in the calc, but can you just, I'm not seeing the amount of square footage that we actually are, that's proposed in front of us.
The gray, excuse me, the gray area is the required amount, that's why it's grayed. The rest of it in the whole section in the front here, this area here, underneath this area here, this is all in the front, including the kind of stairs, I guess, here, including, that's not included. So I think I did a calc once, a couple of months ago. It was all 1,800 square feet total, just behind the setback line, and that's not even including this section in front, which is a 15-foot setback. Also, I guess usable, you can walk around there and pick some figs and stuff like that. So their entire area here is nice, especially when it gets designed nicely by the landscape architect.
So this is being requested of us because it's within the front yard setbacks, but it's not for the actual square footage amount. It's
No.
because it's straddling that
Yeah.
setback. Okay.
You could have two of those boxes, two of the 400 square foot boxes, but per code, one of them has to be somewhere else in the backyard or side yard or something. There's no backyard, but so, as
Gotcha.
you mentioned earlier.
Chair Collas? Just to clarify, it's front yard, not front setback.
Okay.
Yeah.
My only comment would be that in terms of the exterior siding, and I know this is kind of premature, but in terms of finishes, I would want to see that finished in a way that it matched the existing in color tone when the project was completed, rather than having to depend on time to patina those two things down to match one another. We need to give this addition a jump start on that process so that it all kind of comes up or down together. Those are my only comments. Would anybody like to make a motion that would include comments for the staff hearing officer?
I'm ready.
Okay. Ms. Sherry?
This would be an indefinite continuance to the staff hearing officer that the board is
Board
in
Member
support.
Sherry, sorry to interrupt. Can you turn on your microphone, please? Thank you.
Of course. This would be an indefinite continuance back to the staff hearing officer, that the board is in support of the two proposed modifications for both the front yard and the overheight hedge and wall height. The second comment would be, consider a different treatment of this for the security and the aesthetic challenge to the left wall of the stairwell to the yard from the street. And for the applicant to return to the board with a finish and color, proposed finishes and colors, which I think is not required for PDA necessarily, but that's why I'd like to make that recommendation, because there's some comments about finishes and colors. And that catches the coffee-colored wall, it catches the material of the siding, it catches all that.
Yep.
Which is why I just made the comment. And that's it. And I would actually be okay for it to come back on consent, but that I'll leave that up for discussion prior to the vote.
Board Member Sherry, if you would be comfortable with PDA and vinyl at consent, can you clarify?
Yes, I would be comfortable with both, but pending my fellow board members' opinion on that.
I'll second the motion of an indefinite continuance to the staff hearing officer I'd like to see the project come back to full board just so that we can see how they resolve the front and side of that garage. And I think that also maybe creates an opportunity if you decide to do something different there. And the only language that I would like to see added to the motion in support of the fence hedge height ordinance modification that's being requested is that the existing wall and hedge are consistent with the development in the neighborhood and provide the opportunity for an existing condition that directly relates to the neighboring property to be kept in place, if that's acceptable to the
Perfect,
maker of the
and
motion.
actually, just reminding me, we might add into that it also provides privacy on a property that is designed with the only private yard available being in the front yard.
Yeah. Okay. And I would re-second that. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Can we take roll call, please?
Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Graffitti,
Yes.
Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to item 2, which is also here for conceptual review. This is this is 802 East Calle Laureles. This is a proposal to construct a 1,200 square foot, single-story, second residential unit and detached two-car carport. The proposed residential unit exceeds allowances for an accessory dwelling unit and must be proposed as an additional residential unit, which requires review and approval of a performance standard permit by the staff hearing officer. The existing residence and garage are not under the single-family design board purview. So we're reviewing this exclusive of the existing residence and garage. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing. NPO findings, neighborhood preservation findings must be made. Hillside Design District and slope lot findings and grading findings will be required when the project is required for project design approval. Doesn't look like we have staff here to tell us anything, so I would just ask that you introduce yourself to the board, that you introduce yourself to the board as well as your project.
Let's see, this was one fall, that was another fall. Oh, geez, like my girlfriend. So I'm really happy to be here.
Well, if you can just introduce yourself to the board, please,
Brian
and your
Cornell
project. Thank you for the
Ruth Ann.
record.
So let's start with the photos. This came, the home came before the Single Family Design Review Board way back. You do remember it. Yeah, and it's been it's progressing slowly. But this is essentially what was to be an accessory dwelling unit, which has limits to the square footage. So what we opted to do, because this is 29 acres, to apply for this, what's it called again?
Additional residential unit.
Yeah, exactly. So the site is certainly visible when you get a track on it. These are the images. The image in the top center is where we had photo imposed the residence on the top of the hill. So the little building that we're going to be looking at today is directly to essentially the west of that. But you can see, like, from State Street, you can kind of get a glimpse of this hillside, and so it will be visible for sure, but the intent is for this to all just be low-scale, one-story, traditional Spanish, right? So maybe we should go to the site plan. I'm glad I'm not doing this, Yubru. Go ahead, let's go to the site plan first. so that they can see. First sheet, probably. Just scroll up. You can scroll on the, you can grab the bar. You can probably grab the bar.
You
Maybe
can use
their
the mouse as well
The
there
mouse
to your
would
right.
work. Yeah.
Sometimes the up and down arrow also is helpful because it'll actually just scroll you through the
Yeah,
sheets.
which would be perfect. So this is the overall, so let's stop there and we'll just scroll with this, okay, with the arrow. So go down one. So that's the overall 29 acres. This is a little bit of a zoom in, but not much. You can't see it. Go next slide. So here is the top of the hill, so you can see the home and the pool basically below where the little secondary dwelling is, which is to the left. Yeah, you can blow it up a little bit. So you can see we have a main driveway coming up, and then there's sort of a secondary driveway that leads to that little second residence. So let's go to the floor plan. Next slide. Just go ahead and use the button, probably. There you go. Pretty simple. And the next slide. So we have a little carport structure. This is high fire, so that'll all be heavy timber. These buildings are going to be built out of,
Structural concrete insulated.
yeah, the insulated concrete, so you foam with concrete exterior. And so whatever we have that is an overhang actually will be heavy timber structure supported by columns. Otherwise, it's pretty much a simple scrolled edge to the face, to the eave and to the rake. So that's really it. I think I'll just let you guys ask us questions, and hopefully we'll be able to get to the right sheet.
We have the main house set here too, if you want to see it.
Okay.
Main house.
Oh, you do?
Get it.
So
Okay.
it's not within our purview
Well,
to
forget-
review that.
It's-
And I
it's-
think that's already been reviewed and approved. We
Yeah.
just may want to look at that for detailing context, maybe.
It'll all be the same detailing, ultimately. Both of these buildings will get the same detailing, presumably the same color, same windows, all of that.
Okay. Does that conclude your presentation for now? You still have
Yes,
10 and a half minutes, something like that, left on the board.
you save it for me.
Okay, oh, okay.
If you
We'll
guys
do-
get mean.
We'll do that, Mr. Cornell. Okay, so if we can turn this over for public comment for anybody in the audience or online who may want to speak to the project.
Thank you, Chair Colossus. I'll go ahead and start with in-person public comment. At this time, I haven't received any speaker slips, and I don't see anyone moving to speak, so I'll go ahead and move to virtual public comment. If you wish to speak on Zoom, you can raise your hand at this time, and I'll call on you. I don't see any hands raised on Zoom, and we also did not receive any public correspondence for this item, so with that, I'll pass it back to you, Chair Colossus.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Graffiti, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I just want to confirm with staff, and please forgive me as I know we just had our ADU training, but what is the maximum required square footage of an ADU? Is it 800 square feet or is it?
So a
Depends,
special
okay.
ADU which is the only kind of ADU you could build here, would have to be a maximum of 800 square feet.
Okay.
So since this is more than 800 square
Yep.
feet, they can't apply for an ADU. That's why it's a second residential unit.
Yep. Okay, great. Just wanted to confirm the difference there. Question was just materials matching, which you've answered, so I think that's it for me on questions.
Okay, Ms. Anderson, do you have any questions?
Well, I don't know, the superimposed pictures that you created really kind of eliminate all the questions, but that you did such a great job. Thank you so much. Because you can zoom in on those photos and see, you know, from 192. Those are so amazing. But if you happen to know real quick the finished floor of the main house versus what the second unit is, just so we have an idea.
Yeah, we should.
I mean, if you don't have it, it's
it
not
should.
critical.
Be there on the site plan, isn't it? It is a little bit, I think it
A
is a
little
little
bit.
bit higher because of the topography, not a lot.
Right, and then the plate height or your overall height there, just because I can't see that.
Yeah, the overall height of this building, I think, is 13 feet to the
Okay.
ridge,
Okay,
so it's pretty low.
yeah.
So we've got, well, you can see it's
665 and
667,
six.
and then,
Right, and they call it 663.
Okay, so yeah, 3 or 4 feet lower.
yeah.
Yeah, 663.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Ms. Sherry, do you have any questions?
Just one, I'm missing, can you go back to the elevation page? Trying to understand something.
We're gonna have to practice this next time. It would be worse if I were trying to do it.
It's, the thing is, it's
Karen.
not
Up
the
and down
same as
arrow.
all of the drawing programs we're used to using, so everybody comes in here and struggles with it.
Yeah.
Just zoom
just
out
need to
and then
zoom
go to
out.
page 6 of 8. Or, where's the south elevation?
That, no, the south elevation.
The south elevation
Yeah,
is
which
the
is
one I'm
what is
missing.
facing the hillside.
No, well, oh, I thought that the south elevation was, I'm looking for the elevation looking at the covered deck that from,
Actually, we are, it appears that we are, is there another elevation on this sheet? Uru?
you're missing the south
Are we
elevation.
missing an elevation?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gee, that's a problem.
I just was trying to understand the drawings and I see this covered patio going all the way around and I don't necessarily have a problem with it
And
because I
that
know what
is-
you're doing,
yeah,
but
and
I'm
that
not
is the
seeing.
intent, right, because that's the southern side.
Yeah, that's the one you're going to see from the street.
Yeah, no, it's not there, Uru, it's,
Oh,
we have the
south-
carport south
I think this
elevation.
carport is not included.
The south elevation of the carport's behind the house, so I'm just looking for the
Yeah.
main residence. And I thought you might have another elevation sheet you just didn't present.
No, that's an oops. Yeah, it's not there.
Right, it's not there. The
This
house
is like, you have to trust that the back of my shirt is the same as the front of it. But it is a continuous overhang, I know that. So you don't have, you don't possibly have this anywhere else, like the model that we could, no, because this isn't our computer, okay.
Okay.
Well, gee,
It does, it's okay, that we can move forward. I just wanted to point it out that I was looking for it.
no, I'm terribly embarrassed.
is my fault.
I apologize.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So I'm sorry, did we get an answer on how tall the existing residence is? I know we clarified the finished floor elevations, but I'm just wondering what the ridge height is roughly of the existing residence for context purposes.
I can go to the existing drawings, the main house, and,
You sure you have them here?
yeah.
Oh, because it's in the file, okay. I think it's 20, it's
Yeah,
within 25 feet, but there is a tower element that exceeds that. You had it there,
Yeah.
there.
Okay, so what is the
the-
overall, maybe on the right-hand side?
29 on the left of
So that roof ridge is 687, is that what I'm seeing? Okay. And so we would be at
So
roughly
it's 30
600
feet
and,
to the top of the tower, apparently, according to this.
Yeah.
And then the other elevation, keep going, Yuru. We don't have that elevation. We don't have that shown either.
On the left it says 29, but it cuts in a little bit.
Yeah, we're only calling out the height at the tower.
but on the right-hand side in the elevation we were looking at previously, it showed 687, and that looked like that principal ridge line to me. If you go,
No,
oh,
that's the
I'm sorry,
tower.
you're right. So we're somewhere between 687
Yeah.
and
I
682.
guess I should apologize again.
That's okay. Okay, so we're somewhere around, we'll call it 685 with the existing residence, and if we're assuming a finished floor of 666 and then 13 feet, we're somewhere right around 680. So we're 4 or 5 feet lower than the
This-
principal ridge on the main house,
Thank you.
roughly. Okay. Okay. That's the only question that I had, except I have a question for staff. So I was a little bit confused. I wasn't familiar with this ordinance, embarrassingly enough, but, so I understand this is an ARU, not an ADU, because we're at 1,200, but we're in high fire. Okay. We don't have an FAR that's noted in this project description, and my understanding in reading that ordinance is that you typically divide lot size and you attribute that to each home, or there's a magical calc there.
That's
and-
correct. You essentially pretend that it's 2 lots.
Okay, so do we have an FAR calc
Look on
that
the
was
cover.
done
Go to the
based
first
upon
sheet.
that?
Use the scroll button maybe and
I mean, I'm assuming it's very low and it's a non-issue, but,
go back out and then hit these buttons to get to the upper, but reduce the scale. Go back to your plus minus. Go ahead and. no,
if you go up to the
here.
top sheet to the right of the hand, the minus, there you go.
There you go. Yeah. You should be able to just hit the button on the, here, to the next sheet. No, you have to,
You can also just type in 1 instead of 5 on the page count. Oh, here.
Holly the Guru is going to dial us in here.
okay, do we show an FAR on that? Let's now zoom in on the site statistics and see.
So I was actually, I'm not, not that I'm not interested, I'm interested in the FAR of the project in front of us.
Yeah, I don't know how we'd calc it. Would we split the
Chair
property in
Colas,
half?
My understanding is it may be on this set, so they're navigating to that.
Okay,
I don't, yeah. No, it should go back to the statistics, yeah.
Yes.
Keep going. See if we've got a FAR calc. No. Doesn't look like it.
okay.
You said it's 29 acres.
Yeah, so the calc would be based on 14 and a half acres, as I understand the way the ordinance is. Okay. All right. Those were the only questions I had. Ms. Graffiti, do you have any comments?
No, just that I would be in support of the ARU, essentially. I think I'll let the other board members kind of cover. I mean, we're here for comments or only for concept, but yeah, I would be in support of it. Definitely do want to see the south elevation and again, make sure all materials are matching and stuff like that as it progresses, but I'm feel comfortable saying I'm in support today.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I don't have any comments. I think we're ready to approve.
Okay. Ms. Sherry?
No approvals today, right?
I was running a FAR calc, but it's really low.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the calc, it's just not documented, which is atypical of our project
Yeah, it is true,
descriptions.
it's true.
And I'm assuming it would be appropriate for that to be memorialized as part of the project description.
And we will be coming back, obviously, with, for approval on both the main residence and this, and we'll make sure that we include the south elevation and the FARs,
That would be appreciated.
and we'll do a little more practicing on the,
I think that, I mean, it basically, the FAR would be maximum home size on a 14
It's going to be well in
acre
excess.
parcel is like the floor area, including the garage, would be like 12,000 or something like that, square feet or something like that. But, no, I don't have an issue with this, and I appreciate it, the one-story nature, and that the materials and the colors and the detailing will match the existing residence, and come back with the south elevation.
Okay. So I think we're all on the same page. I don't have I don't have anything to add. I would support the project based on the conditions that we've all kind of talked about, and the idea that we would have a south elevation to look at and an FAR that would be memorialized as part of the project description. And I would be comfortable sending it back to staff. I would be comfortable sending it back to consent calendar, actually. Yeah, I think if it didn't have a covering on the south side where there was some potential for some glare or reflectivity, I'd be more concerned about that. But since that's memorialized on the floor plan, I think that's okay. Does anybody want to make a motion, or I'm happy to make a motion? Okay, so I'm going to move that this project be continued to the consent calendar with positive comments. And the board can support what we believe to be the project based on the drawings in front of us. We would ask that the applicant returned with a southerly elevation for our review, as well as an FAR calculation based on the ARU ordinance. And the only conditions that we really imagine would be that all of the detailing match the existing residence, as well as colors. And I think that's it.
Chair Collas, I'm sorry, but it has to be continued to the staff hearing officer first.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so we're continuing this indefinitely to the staff hearing officer, and we'd be happy for it to return after the staff hearing officer to our consent calendar. Thank you for the correction. Do we have a second? A second. Okay, if we could have roll call, please.
Chair Collas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Gerfeiti,
Yes.
Board Member Sherry.
Yes.
Motion passes.
you've been exceedingly kind.
Yes, we have.
Thank you for that. I guess I should come in crippled more often. I have to wear this thing for 6 weeks. No, it's okay. I have to sleep with this. I had rotator cuff surgery. I was saving my little putter.
Let me,
From-
let us
from a
go ahead and
German-
we'll
oh, I'm
adjourn the
sorry.
meeting. The Single Family Design Board meeting will adjourn this for June 5th, 2023. Thank you.
I was saving my dog from a